The ice cream man. That goddamn jingle, the one we all recognize while growing up from what seems like miles away. It had the power to put any summer activity on pause, like mosquitoes to a lantern. Kids dropped their baseball bats or abandoned the most coveted hiding spot under the back porch of the house, swarming towards the sound of a sweet vanilla ice cream cone, or a red, white, and blue rocket popsicle. My favorite used to always be the cartoon character popsicles that had gumballs for eyes. Kevin's were the drumsticks. He loved the hardened chocolate in the peanut shell. I couldn't help but smile whenever I saw the look of delight on his face as he finally reached the extra milk chocolate at the bottom of the waffle cone. It makes me want to smile even now, but I can't. Kevin's been missing for 12 years now. At 11 years of age, a slightly underweight, dirty blonde-haired kid with thick lensed glasses disappeared from a middle-of-nowhere small town in North Carolina. The last trace anyone ever saw of him were those glasses. The frames were all bent and gnarled with a lens popped out of place. Not even a foot away was the milk chocolate end of a drumstick. They were found in the middle of the street of my neighborhood, 2 doors down from my house. Our house. I remember my brother Kevin as a quiet kid back then. He was an observer in most public situations, but just had the face of somebody you wanted to know. Which was good, because I'm not sure he would have made friends otherwise. I was 4 years older than he was and felt an inherent sense of responsibility to always check in with him and make sure he was doing okay. He would always say, "Yeah, I'm just thinking." He thought a lot, and his unobtrusive attitude was almost the exact opposite of mine. I wasn't exactly a punk at 15. I just always had something to say. I was funny and charismatic, and far from the sharpest tool in the shed, but I didn't eat rocks for breakfast either. It was early July, a few days after the 4th, when Kevin went missing. The sun was relentless that day, while we were in the middle of a neighborhood-wide water balloon fight. The times that he ran around and became engaged in competitive activities were few and far between, but that day, Kevin was running around like he was hooked to an IV filled with coffee. I was ecstatic and fired up when Kevin led the charge on the other team's home base. Following right behind him with water balloons blazing, we drenched them to the bone. Just as we loudly proclaimed our victory for the early afternoon, we all stopped, not speaking or moving a muscle to make sure we actually heard what we thought we did. "Do you hear that?" Kevin asked me as he dropped the last of his water balloons with a pop and a splash. Of course I did. Everyone did. It was that goddamn jingle. "Who's got money? I'll pay you back, I swear!" One boy pleaded with the group as another stepped up and flashed a $20 bill to us. Prescott was his name, if I remember right. "I had to take out the trash for this. I'll cover whoever needs it, but you owe me one," Prescott said with his well-to-known, "I'm better than you" look. The group burst out in cheer as they all took off towards the street in front of the house, leaving Kevin and I a step behind. I grabbed him by the wrist in pursuit of the other neighborhood boys. "Come on! I have money for us!" I yelled. Everyone was running to be first in line for the ice cream man, and we got there last. That tiny pink mobile refrigerator was coming down our street now. It had a big plastic vanilla ice cream cone on top that had a wide-eyed happy face and outstretched arms like it wanted to hug the world in front of it. I want to take a spiked baseball bat to it now, but of course back then I didn't give it a second thought. The kids all stood around dancing and singing lyrics to the jingle that only grew louder as it came closer. "Does your chain hang low? Does it wobble to the floor? Can you tie it in a knot? Can you tie it in a bow?" Albeit, being only kids at the time, we had no idea that these were the wrong lyrics and that the actual song was incredibly racist. The ice cream truck drew closer, and as it pulled up in front of us, I noticed its front windows were tinted darker than they should have been. Again, I didn't give this a second thought as Kevin bounced around in excitement. "Drumstick?" I asked him. You know it, he said while still bopping around to that goddamn jingle. I laughed at his enthusiasm and pulled a $5 bill out of my back pocket. There was now a gaggle of kids on the sidewalk as others came to join in on the excitement from different houses on the block. I don't know why I never thought in that moment that the truck seemed sketchy, but looking back, there was something off about it. The thing was kind of a dump, to put it plainly. The paint seemed as if it needed a fresh coat years ago. The wheel rims were rusted, and the whole structure sounded as if it was on its last leg. The goddamn jingle was clear as day, though. The order window on the side of the truck opened up, and a skinny, pale man with shoulder-length black hair poked his head out with a grin. Hello, what's your poison, kid? He asked with a freakishly wide smile, addressing the first one in line. He straightened his black bow tie and began rolling up the sleeves of his all-white button-up shirt. I'm paying for myself and these 5 guys behind me, Prescott said proudly. Ooh, Mr. Moneybags over here, huh? The ice cream man responded as he shared a laugh with Prescott and the other boys in the front of the line. Kevin and I waited our turn as the sun continued to beam down on us with absolute ferocity. I was thinking about just getting out of line and calling it a day when I heard Kevin say, "A drumstick, please, and thank you." It was our turn. Great choice, my man. 1 drumstick coming right up, the ice cream man said as he made a drum roll with his hands on the shelf above the freezer. I realized I had zoned out the whole time we were in line and started looking at the menu on the side of the truck. Sonic the Hedgehog and those green gumball eyes sounded great. The ice cream man closed the freezer and handed Kevin his cold treat. Kevin thanked the man and then turned to me and gave me a hug. I'm so excited. Thanks, big bro. He unwrapped it in the blink of an eye. I hadn't even paid the piper yet, so to speak. No problem, Kev, I smiled. And for you? The ice cream man asked me. I looked up into the man's eyes and felt my stomach drop. His eyes were black, pure black. There was no white to be seen. Not the black you normally see when someone tells you that something is black, or that the color black is all the colors mixed together, but blacker than black. It was an evil black, like planet and star swallowing deep space black hole black. For that moment, I felt like I was falling into them, and I wasn't coming back out. I wanted to puke. Then, all at once, I snapped back as if I had caught myself from falling asleep standing up. I shook my head and looked back up at the black-haired man in front of us. His eyes were normal again. They were brown, dark brown maybe, but not black. Not anymore. I shook it off as a hallucination brought on by the heat and asked for one of the Sonic popsicles. Sorry, kid. Must have run out earlier today. I only have the SpongeBob gumball popsicles left. That's fine. I'll take one of those, I said, slightly disappointed, but not by much. The ice cream man dug into his freezer and pulled out the Nickelodeon character and handed it to me. I gave him the money I owed him for the SpongeBob popsicle and Kevin's drumstick, which was almost gone by this point. We stepped to the side of the line and I began to unwrap my ice cream. I damn near dropped it when I saw the gumball eyes on this were completely black. I looked up at the pale man in the truck. He looked at me with the face of someone who was up to something sinister and winked. The eye that closed, the one that he winked at me with, opened, and it was black again. I fell. I woke up on the sidewalk with all the neighborhood boys gathering around me and wondering if I was okay. I couldn't open my eyes yet. The sun sitting in the sky was too bright. I could hear that goddamn jingle in the distance. Move! 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 I heard Prescott's voice. The air outside went from what felt like 1,000,000 degrees to sub-zero in an instant, and with a loud splash, as Prescott and another boy dumped a bucket of ice water on me. I gasped for air as some went up my nose, but the cool down was overall a welcoming sensation. You okay? Prescott asked. Yeah, I'm fine, just hot, that's all. I was embarrassed enough that I had fainted, let alone tell them that I thought it was because of the black-eyed ice cream man. I stood up slowly with the help of some of the other boys and looked around. Where's Kevin? I asked. Not sure. He probably ran off to grab your parents. You fell pretty hard, Prescott said as we walked 2 houses down to my front door. Thanks for the help, P. No problem. Go inside and get cool so I can crush you and Kevin's asses with some more water balloons tomorrow, he said with a laugh as he walked back to the other boys. That goddamn jingle was still audible, but faint now as I reached for the handle of my front door. I walked into my house and headed down the hall to the right of the stairs near the entrance. My mother was sitting at the kitchen counter reading a magazine as I headed for the refrigerator to get some water. Sweetie, are you okay? You don't look so hot, Mom asked, looking up from her reading. I have the opposite problem. It's hot as hell out there. Oh, you know I don't like curse words, honey. Say H-E double hockey sticks next time. I laughed. You got it, Mom. I took a sip from a plastic water bottle. Mom, did Kevin come through here? No, he must still be outside, she said, going back to her magazine. I was confused now. Maybe, I thought to myself, but I didn't feel good about it. I went upstairs to check his bedroom. Mom probably just didn't hear him come in, but he wasn't up there either. I went back outside. By now, all the kids had dispersed, having either gone home or went back to playing in the sprinklers their parents had set up in their front yard. I walked around to my own backyard, but still no Kevin. I walked back towards where we were having our water balloon war. Again, nothing. No one. I remembered the eyes. A wave of nausea engulfed me, and I began to feel cold. My hands started to sweat as I ran back up to the street. Why could I still hear that goddamn jingle? I went back to the spot the ice cream man had stopped. They were right there, Kevin's glasses, bent and broken. I picked them up and looked around, yelling his name. I was terrified now. Kevin can't see without his glasses. I looked down and saw the milk chocolate end of the drumstick. I ran home faster than I had ever run. Mom, Kevin's gone! What are you talking about? She asked from the kitchen. I ran in to find her cutting up a watermelon, looking at me dumbfounded. I found his glasses. He didn't even finish his ice cream, and there was this man with black eyes, and I passed out, and he was gone. I couldn't get the words out fast enough. Slow down, honey. What man? Where's your brother? She was concerned now. The ice cream man. It had to have been him, Mom. We have to go find him. You're saying an ice cream man took Kevin? In broad daylight? With everyone that was out there? I fainted and everyone was helping me. Nobody was looking at the ice cream man. Please, you have to believe me. Kevin wouldn't have broken his own glasses. He's blind as a bat without them. Tears were streaming down my face at this point. It sounded so far-fetched to my mother. I knew that, but the way that the ice cream man looked at me, winked at me, he was bad. I couldn't get it across any other way. I told my mother everything that I had felt, the way the man looked, his eyes, and how they seemed to have swallowed me whole. She was concerned enough for us to get into the car and drive around looking for that shitty little pink truck. All the while, that goddamn jingle played in my head over and over. We drove around for several hours, and when we got back, we double-checked the house. My father eventually came home from work, and my mom told him everything. When the sun started going down is when we called the cops. A couple officers came by, and I told them everything. They said they couldn't report Kevin as missing until 24 hours had gone by. 24 hours went by. We reported Kevin missing, and an Amber Alert went out. We hung flyers all over the town and branched out into others too. Our story went national, and similar kidnapping stories began popping up from everywhere. In each story, there was always a skinny, pale man with long black hair and evil black eyes. And the only witnesses were kids. The ice cream truck was always a different color, though. The most terrifying part about all the kidnappings was that they all happened on the same exact day. Not just the same day, but the same time. 468 kids across America disappeared without a trace, and there seemed like there wasn't anything anybody could do. Detectives tried to make some patterns on maps out of the kidnappings, but there was none to be found. The locations were random. From my neighborhood in North Carolina to Waco, Texas, Yellowstone, Montana, to San Francisco, California, Boston, Massachusetts, Nowhere, Florida, and all the way up to Anchorage, Alaska. Who the fuck was in the mood for ice cream in Alaska? Everyone who owned and operated an ice cream truck was investigated thoroughly and cleared. Their businesses undoubtedly went under because no parents would let their kids near them anymore. It's been 12 years now. Not 2 years after Kevin disappeared, my mother couldn't handle it and overdosed on sleeping pills. My father and I were left broken and lost, but we managed in our own ways. I'm 27 now, married to a beautiful woman I met at Alcoholics Anonymous. I have an okay job and 2 beautiful little boys. A 5-year-old named Tanner, and a 3-year-old I named after my brother Kevin. God, I miss him. James closed his journal and stood up from his desk. It was the 12th anniversary of his brother's disappearance. He left his office and walked into the kitchen to find his wife Emily cutting fresh brownies into individual squares. She looked up at him and smiled. Behind that smile was the knowing of what her husband was feeling today. "I love you, James," she said. "I love you too, sweetheart," he said with a heavy heart. "Are the kids in the living room?" "Yeah, I just threw some cartoons on to keep them occupied while you were writing." "Thank you. It feels good to get it down on paper." "That's great to hear, dear," Emily said with a smile as she walked over to give James a kiss on the cheek. He blushed. Even after all this time, she still made his heart sore. James walked from the kitchen into his living room to see his son Tanner sitting on the couch, holding his baby brother while he watched TV. "What are you watching, big guy?" James asked. "SpongeBob SquarePants," Tanner exclaimed with a giggle. James shuddered but brushed it off and went to go pick up his youngest when he heard the music. He never forgot it, but he hadn't physically heard it in years. It was that goddamn jingle. Holding Kevin now, James went to the window looking out towards the street. Looking down the road as far as he could and seeing the neighborhood kids outside playing in the summer heat. He saw it, the same exact one. The ice cream truck with the faded pink paint and that stupid vanilla ice cream cone with the face and the outstretched arms on top. "Tanner, watch your brother," James said hurriedly as he put Kevin back next to his older brother on the couch. Not stopping to put his shoes on, James ran out the door in his boxer briefs and the t-shirt he had slept in. He ran out to the sidewalk as the ice cream truck stopped by a group of kids gathering around and dancing to that goddamn jingle. Out of his peripheral vision, James saw Tanner running across the front yard while little Kevin followed as best he could. Emily crashed out the front door to try and get the boys back inside. The side window of the ice cream truck opened up, and a pale man with long, dirty blonde hair and thick lensed glasses poked his head out with an overly friendly smile. He was looking right at James, who froze in place. Then he turned his head and looked at Tanner, and then James' youngest, Kevin. He focused his gaze back on James with a terrifyingly wide smile. The ice cream man's eyes sucked him in like a black hole as James realized who this person was. "Kevin?" he thought, as the world went black.